As a Muslim, you have clicked to this video. Now let's imagine this scenario. There are two teams. One team will be the team of the Dajjal or the Antichrist, and the other team is the team of Isa alayhi salam or Jesus. This is the end of time. Okay, let's imagine. Now, if I ask you which team do you want to join, you'll be like, come on, is this girl serious? I mean, obviously, I'm gonna join the team of Isa alayhi salam as a Muslim. I wish it was this easy to understand because it's not going to be this much easy. It's not going to be like you are choosing your favorite football team. The way you are going to be in the team at the end of the times, whether it's going to be the team of the Dajjal or the Antichrist, the team of Isa alayhi salam, is going to be dependent on how you have led your life according to the Quran, according to the hadith of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If your deeds were far away from the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it is very likely that you are going to be in the team of the Dajjal or the Antichrist. But if your actions are aligning with the sayings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hadith, the way our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us to live our life, then yes, you can manage to get away from the Dajjal and get into the team of Isa alayhi salam and ultimately gain Jannah. But how can we do that? How can we save ourselves from the tribulations and the fitnahs of the end times? How can we save ourselves from Antichrist or the one who is going up to us and say that I am God, believe in me? That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran, and our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has guided us. That is to learn the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf that will literally save yourself and your family from the tribulations of the Dajjal. And today this video is exactly about that. Agendas of today's video is going to be why we need to learn the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf, the purpose of it, how you are going to do that within a week literally, and also an ebook that will uphold the maximum important strategies of learning Surah Al-Kahf, and also a digital tracker in it that will be a friend while you are memorizing it. Let's start. Now, firstly, you need to understand the purpose of learning the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf. And obviously, we know that if we learn the verses of Quran, we will gain rewards, we will gain the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our mind will widen, teach this to our upcoming generation, and then ultimately we can gain Jannah. Obviously, if we work upon that. But the thing is, why the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf? This is the question I have been asking myself since I learned that you should recite Surah Al-Kahf every Friday, and then I was particularly inclined to it. Surah Al-Kahf has particularly three important stories in its body. The story of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr, the story of Zulkarnain, the stories of the people of the cave who have taken refuge. Now, why particularly Surah Al-Kahf? Because it has the verses that will save us from the tribulation or act as a shield against the Antichrist, and also allow us to be the companions of Isa alayhi salam when he will literally defeat the Antichrist. How it becomes a shield against the Dajjal or the Antichrist. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has already told us to learn the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf. The hadith, it comes up that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has stated, during the time of the creation of Adam alaihi salam, or the first human on earth, and the day of resurrection or the day of judgment, there is nothing more deadlier than the trial of Antichrist or the Dajjal. Particularly when I see the situation right now in the world, I think that damn it can't get that bad. Literally, but it will get worse in the upcoming future. So it's particularly important that you are saving yourselves and also the upcoming generation from the tribulations of the Dajjal, the tribulations of wealth, the tribulation of power, the trial of knowledge, etc. Whatever is going around the world you can see. People think that the Dajjal is going to be a person who is just going to come up and ask you, I am God, I can do this, and you have to believe in me. Obviously, he's going to do that. Its effect has been started since the age of human, literally. Emergence of powerful tools that will literally create fake human. You can't even recognize which one is a real human, which one is a fake human. The way people are gaining power right now, the way people are gaining wealth right now, they don't care about how they're getting wealth. All these things are the effects of the trials of the Dajjal. He's somehow building up that root inside us so that his task becomes much more easier. It is much deeper than that. If you read the Quran properly, if you understand certain things, your mind will be much more broader, and trust me, you will start hating the world. That's what I am in the, like, I'm in this situation right now. The more I read about hadith, the more I read about the Quran, I can understand which way the world is going to. The next point is to be the companion of Isa alayhi salam. We have to be the disciples or the companions of Isa alayhi salam because obviously he needs the Muslim participation in his team defeat the Dajjal. Alright, so that's why we have to be there. First of all, we have to save ourselves from the fitnah of Dajjal. We have to save ourselves Dajjal gaining power on us. If we can save ourselves from that, then we can join or be the companion of Isa alayhi salam. Otherwise, we cannot. Right? So how you can gain that thing, how you can gain that shield is through learning the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf. And that's one of the important purpose of learning the first 10 ayats. Now, people may ask this question that I don't think the world is gonna end before my death. I mean, first of all, who knows? By the time COVID came, we didn't even know that the world is going to be in this direction. The AI is going to take over the world. We didn't have any idea, literally. It is upon Allah's hand because He is the creator of time. He knows. He might shrink it, He might stretch it, who knows? Okay, so that's why it's necessary for you to learn as soon as you can. The next point is, if you cannot learn, you cannot pass it to your next generation. No matter which situation you are, no matter if you see the world is going to end or not before your death, doesn't matter. Just do it if you can. Understanding first 10 verses. Now, particularly if you want to learn something new, you firstly have to understand the purpose, which we have already did, and then we have to understand what is it that you are going to learn. So if you don't understand what you are going to learn, then it's not going to stay in your mind for very long. You will vaguely remember everything. So that's why we have to understand the first 10 verses, the meaning of it, what has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in these first 10 verses to literally help us from the fitness of the Dajjal. That doesn't mean the other 90 to 100 verses is completely unimportant. It's not like that, because Surah Al-Kahf, as I have told, that holds some important stories, actually connects. Like, I was surprised when I saw that actually connects with the current world we are living in. The overall thing, the overall Surah Al-Kahf is just made for that, literally holding what the current world is or the future world is going to be. We'll just shorten it into a passage, kind of. I won't go step by step in every verse. Starts by explaining, by Allah saying and upholding His greatness, Him saying that the Quran is the only and the final book that doesn't hold any kind of doubt, followed by the severe punishment that disbelievers are going to get. And next comes up with the ayat that says that, which is very much true, and it has been said to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you might get into grief when you see that the disbelievers, when you hold the verses to them, they don't believe in it. This is so much true. When I argue with people on the Instagram comments, I can see how much blind-hearted they are. Like, they have these questions over and over again. Some of the questions doesn't even make sense. Yes, you will go into grief when you see that you are holding the truth, but still the disbelievers doesn't believe in it. And also the disbelievers saying that Allah has got an offspring, na'uzubillah. Then comes some of the most important verses, so which is also related to the end times. Allah has said that whatever the adornments we see on the world, it is going to turn into a barren land once. And this is the indication that He is giving about the end of times, about the day of judgment, where He will literally end everything, finish everything, and it will be just Him remaining. You can see that it is actually the verses are going to the end of times. They are reflecting the end of times. And He also talks about to test who among us are the best in deeds. People who actually took refuge in the cave, the Ashabul Kahf, or the people of the cave, who has taken refuge and has asked for mercy from Allah. So basically, Allah will test us. Allah will take us through some kind of trials to check whether we actually ask for His mercy when we are in problems or not. And this is the same thing that the story of Ashabul Kahf is. Basically, whenever we get into the trials or tribulations, or we can see what the world is going on right now, the only thing we can do is ask for mercy from Allah. That's the test we have to give. We are giving right now. So basically, these are the first 10 verses, and they completely reflect about the end of times, about the disbelievers, how they are going to be, about the believers when they are going to test and trials, good or bad situation, how they are going to ask for mercy from Allah. And like, these are all the things that has been said in the verses, and that's why it is particularly important to learn the first 10 ayats, because first 10 ayats just completes everything. Not only this, surprisingly, the whole Surah Al-Kahf, 3 important stories that I have said about the situation, let's say, understand about the 2 people to whom Allah has given the wealth, the power, and one of them was boastful about it, but the other one was just simply praising Allah for giving all of those things. But the one who was boastful about his situation, arrogant about his wealth, everything was destroyed in a situation, and that one reflects trials of wealth in this current time. The people who have wealth, they're so much arrogant, they're so much boastful about it. They don't know that this actually came from the one Lord of. They don't appreciate that, and they are boastful about it. And what will happen at the end? Everything will finish, and they will actually say the same thing that the person in the Quran and the the Surah Al-Kahf has said that I wish I wasn't this much arrogant about the wealth which Allah has just given me for some temporary of time. It's the same lesson. So basically, these are all the traps of the Dajjal, and that's why it's necessary to learn the first 10 ayats and save ourselves from it. The next point is about listening to it. You won't believe how many people in the world have literally learned specific verses of the Quran by just listening to them on Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. I am included in that. And also, it is going to be helpful if you want to learn the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have learned literally the first 30 to 40 by just listening to them. You know, the YouTube video that has no kind of background music, but just some men reciting the 99 names of Allah in a beautiful tone. And then I literally learned some of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by just listening to that, literally. So you won't just memorize the specific verses, but you would also understand the tajweed and makarat, how to pronounce specific letters of the in the Arabic, where to hold your tone, where you have to stop instantly, etc. You will literally learn those by listening. You will understand when the scholars are stopping, at what point they're stopping, for how long they're stopping, where they're extending their tone, everything. That's the power of auditory learning. There are certain types of learners in this world, like visual, auditory. They learn through social, interpersonal skills. They learn through writing. They learn through kinesthetic ways, etc. I want you to try the auditory one while you are learning the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf, because I guess I learned the first 2 to 3 verses literally just by listening. And lots of people do that. Even in some cases, in some subjects, I have seen that people literally listen to their own notes so that they can remember the studies or the lessons. Yes, I would actually urge you to learn any kind of Quran verses, particularly for this video, the first ayats of Surah Al-Kahf, by just listening. The next point we are going to talk about is using the photographic memory. This term is very much familiar to us. Photographic memory, or known as the eidetic memory, is an unusual ability to remember a past image you have seen in a very crystal clear manner. Now, the scientists have said that only 2 to 10% of children has this ability, and this ability is pretty much absent in the adults. What I have seen is that there are lots of people I know who are actually very good at photographic memory. I don't know why the term is rare is used or absent is used in the case of adults, because I know lots of people. Now, photographic memory is used in by lots of students, like literally while they are studying any kind of subjects. But particularly when I was learning or memorizing the first 10 ayahs, I found it extremely helpful. So what I did was I literally read first 10 ayahs. Read. I didn't try to recall before even learning it. What I did was I reread truly the first 10 ayahs again and again every single day. And what I found is that I was able to recite at least 3 to 4 verses without even looking at the Quran after reciting or rereading it by looking at it. Not like, okay, I have read once and then trying to recall it. Not like that. I literally read it more than 10 times every single day, or like every other day, let's say. Basically, what it is doing is that literally at once I realized that those verses were floating in front of my eyes. That's the photographic memory you get when you reread things again and again. And one thing I've also realized, that the development of the photographic memory is also dependent on the learning platform you are choosing. What I mean by this is that, for example, I use the Quran.com. I think you might be familiar with that website. It's like very fancy. It's clear. It's easy to operate and everything. So I use that one. So whenever I'm outside, I'm waiting for the bus, I'm inside the bus, or I'm at home lying down, I just open that website and just start reading the verses. Okay, that actually helped me, because when I was learning from that app, and after I started rereading the first 10 ayah every time, every other day, whenever I get time, whenever I'm away from the Quran, let's say I'm sitting around, I can literally see the verses in front of my eyes, even tell which verse ends at which section. That's the effectiveness of photographic memory, and this can literally help you to learn the first 10 ayats. The thing is, I won't actually say that I have read that every single day, but it was literally every other day. And one most important thing, which is also going to be the next point, which helped me to learn very swiftly, is reciting it every other Friday. I literally got inclined to learning the first 10 ayats is when I started reading it every other Friday. Now, the thing is that when I followed some specific pattern, it became easier for example, when we start reading Surah Al-Kahf every Friday, we start with the verse number 1. So when you do it once, twice, thrice, like fourth time, fifth time, every other Friday, you can literally say, even before opening the Quran, you can recite the first 2 verses easily, because that's where we start reading Surah Al-Kahf every other Friday. So what I want to say over here is that if you recite the ayats every other day you can literally end up memorizing it. And that's something I have noticed. I was shocked, like repeating the pattern, repeating the rhythm, how much I have learned by just repeating the verses again and again every Friday. So I was thinking, like, if this is where I reach by reading it every other Friday, where can I reach if I read it every single day? I'm not saying that you have to learn the 10 ayats in one go. Just start with one single verse every other day. Okay, just one verse. Okay, and you have to repeat it again and again. I know it sounds very little to just recite one verse or to learn one verse every other day. Trust me, the immense amount of rewards you are getting through it, depending how long the verse is and depending how much letter one verse contains. Don't think that reciting or learning one verse a day is very little, because that's immense amount of rewards. Okay, if you don't have the habit of reciting Surah Al-Kahf every other Friday, yes, it's going to be a bit tough, and you are going to feel very new to Surah Al-Kahf. So that's why, like, yes, there is a reason to read Surah Al-Kahf every other Friday and to read the Quran every other day. Trust me, because you literally connect with it whenever you read it. The next point is also part related to the previous point I have mentioned, and it is start very small. Don't try to learn the first 5 verses on the very day. Okay, don't do it. You will literally develop a kind of negativity from it. You will feel demotivated because it's tough to memorize the first 10 verses. If you are not habituated to this thing of learning verses every other day, then it's going to be very tough for you. And psychologically, if it's the first step you take and it's very tough, then it is very unlikely that you are going to continue that in the future. So make it easy at the very first stage for you. Start with rereading the 10 verses again and again and again till you develop the photographic memory, and then recite it every other Friday. Slowly start to learn verse number 1. Try to repeat it whenever you are, wherever you are, except when you're sleeping or when you're in the washroom, you can recite it. Just try recalling and see if you can manage to recall the first verse. That's how slowly you have to take the steps. Now, one more thing I have realized during my learning phase is that there are some issues that I was facing. One of the issues was that I keep forgetting some of the specific verses. For example, I always forget the 7th verse or the 8th verse. Or sometimes the problem I have is that I keep connecting one verse with the wrong one. It's very wrong to do. Like, let's say if I sometimes end up connecting 5 number verse with 7 number verse. Okay, so these are the issues that I have faced. I guess you might also have these kind of issues during your memorization phase, and that's why the ebook that I have made will help you, because the ebook Learn the First 10 Verses of Surah Al-Kahf and Keep the Fitnah Away will literally be your friend during the memorization phase, and it will also contain certain kind of solutions and problems which I haven't mentioned in this video, and also a digital tracker which will help you to track your memorization. So if you go to the link below under this video, you can literally get that ebook. The next point is adding a new verse with the previously learned one. Now, over here, the term spaced repetition will come in. If you don't know about spaced repetition, it is a learning technique where you review the previously learned materials with an increasing interval of time to increase your memory retention. Why? Because our brain goes through something which is called the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve hypothesizes that our brain, or the human brain, has the tendency of forgetting the learned materials unless they consciously reviews their previously learned materials. If you see this picture on the screen, that when you learn something, it literally goes away from your mind with increasing amount of time. If you revise it with increasing interval of time, then it will stay or retain in your memory for a longer time. And spaced repetition, active recalling, these are so much common in the academic life because people go through it. Now, this is also important. These terms are also important while learning the Quran: spaced repetition and active recalling. Active recalling, which I have already talked about, and this point talks about the spaced repetition. What do I mean by the heading of the point which says that add a new verse with the learned one? Let's explain that in a scenario. For example, if you have learned on the first day the first verse, you go ahead on the second day. It doesn't necessarily have to the very next day. It can be or it cannot be, but let's say it's the second day, and then you are going to learn the second verse. What I will tell you to do before even learning the second verse is that try and remember the first verse you have learned. That is spaced repetition. You are reviewing the previous materials even before learning the first one. So basically, try to recall the first verse you have learned. Don't just reread it from the Quran. Try to get it out from your brain. If you cannot, go back to the Quran, read it, and then come back and recall and get it out from your brain. That is what you are doing, actively recalling spaced repetition. That means spacing out the time. You are repeating it with some interval of time. So basically, then when you go ahead with the third day, you are going to learn the third verse. First, try to remember the first 2 verses you have learned. Actively recall with spacing time and see if you can recall it, and then learn the third verse. So basically that's what I mean by adding a new one with the learned verse. This will not only help you to get the learned materials out from your brain, but also learn a new one, taking the things or the learned materials out from your brain. And this is so much uncomfortable because people feel like, what if I can't get it out from my brain, and I will feel demotivated, I will feel like a failure. That is necessary. Okay, because other than that, if you're not doing that thing, you are just passively learning your materials, and passive learning won't help you in the long run. It won't help you because you won't be able to remember the first 10 ayats if you don't actively recall, if you don't do spaced repetition after a year of learning it. So that's why it is very important. And literally, let me tell you this thing, you will grow when you are in uncomfortable situation. So our next point is going to be recall the first word of every verse. This is an issue which I have faced because when I have realized that when I go to the 7th or 8th verse, I tend to forget the verse, not the complete verse, but I just can't remember what the verse talks about or what the verse starts with. This thing I have found in my childhood, discovered in my childhood, is that let's say if I'm memorizing an essay and at some point I forgot what I have to say next, and then my teacher gives me a hint, which is the first word, and then I can like, yeah, the first word, and then I can start reading or telling the complete essay. So this issue or this solution I have applied in learning the verses. For example, if I forget the 7th verse completely, just I went blank, I do go in that way. So I will just look back a little bit and then I will see what the verse starts with, what is the first word of the 7th verse, and I go like, oh okay, I remember, and then I can recite the whole verse and the upcoming verse. So that is the hint you are getting. It's completely okay, it's completely okay. Okay, you don't have to torture yourself for that. Yes, at some point you'll be like, why do I have to get the hint? Why can't I just remember it automatically? It You will. Okay, inshallah you will in the future if you continuously work upon it. So if you feel that thing, if you have that issue of forgetting certain verses and completely went blank, then you can try this. Just get the first word, the first hint, and then you can literally go ahead. For example, if someone asks me to recite Surah Al-Kahf, I will literally remember the first word, which starts with Alhamdulillah, praise to be Allah, and I can say, oh okay, yeah, it starts in this way. Okay, so the last point of this video, which is to repeat and repeat. I know I have told this lots of times. The people who are actually memorizing the Quran, they will tell you, like, one of the common point everyone will tell you is to repeat it. So like you can repeat it wherever you can. Some people actually sets their own time, sets their own mood, own space, and then start reciting it because they find it very sacred. Other than that, if you are memorizing some ayats or some verses of the Quran, you can literally recite it anywhere, which I have told you the exceptions. You cannot recite it in the washroom or something, some places like that. So let's say what I usually do is like, I'm washing my dishes, I'm cooking, I'm dusting my bed, I will literally start reciting it and then check whether I am being able to actively recall it, actively remember the first 10 verses. I can't even tell you how much it helped me. Okay, so don't be ashamed of repeating it again and again. Don't be angry on yourself when you can't remember certain things, because every time you can go back to the Quran and recall it, reread it, and then remember it. But Allah doesn't pressure us on something which is beyond our capacity. So remember that, okay? If you can do something, that means Allah is allowing you to. Allah has given you the capacity to do that. So I hope you have really found this video helpful, and that will help you to start the journey memorizing the first 10 ayats of Surah Al-Kahf. Please go back to the purpose again and again, because that will help you to continue. Don't forget your purpose. And also one more thing is that if you want to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, where the last week's newsletter was this one, so if you want to get this kind of important and crucial newsletters, then make sure you are subscribing to my weekly newsletter, and the link will be under the video. And also, if you want to get that ebook that I have talked about, and trust me, you will literally find that ebook very much helpful, then obviously you can hit the link below. And there is one more ebook which I have mentioned in my recent video, where I have talked about how I did the volunteerings, the content creation, part-time work while being a full-time student. You can watch it over here on the screen. That video also contains an ebook that is to master your time for students and professionals. You can get that ebook if you go to the link down below. And also you can watch another video of mine where I have talked about how to multitask efficiently. Yes, I know multitask is unhealthy, but that video talks about how you can do it efficiently, and you can watch it over here. That's all for today. If you want to watch new videos like this, then make sure you have hit the subscribe button, and take care. I will see you in the next video. Assalamu Alaikum.